build my gallows and build them high. Makes a long time climbing before I die. Hello everybody, welcome to Longbangers. I'm Matty, joined tonight by Colin and John. How you doing, boys?
Aye. It's been a busy weekend, remembering and mourning, and when I've not been doing that, I've been grieving.
I just clocked it, we're all wearing black, eh?
I was going to get the duct tape on the bicep, but
a wee picture cut out the metro as well, eh? Even if I could paid for paper.
I've got a drawer here I can pull out if you wanted me to do that.
It was so well, obviously we'll not spend any time talking about the obvious because folk have very different opinions on it, and you can see through social media that feelings are running high. So just one thing I kind of noticed is that the last couple of days have shown how many fucking weirdos there are in the country. Like as if you didn't already know it, there are some fucking weird people. The offshoot of, or one of the consequences of the events of the last week is that there was no football at the weekend. So normally on a Sunday night we'd be sitting down to talk about Dundee United versus Hibs, reviewing hopefully what would have been a win for the Hibs, and laughing at how shambolic Dundee United's defence was and how much of a prick Tony Watt is, and how Stephen Fletcher probably isn't good enough to play for Hibs still at this stage in his career. And things like that, but obviously the game didn't happen, and what will probably happen is when it does get replayed, the opposite of all of those things will happen, and I'll look like a tit for saying all that, but we'll deal with that when we come to it. So what we thought we'd do for an episode tonight, we kind of had run through a couple of ideas. We thought we'd maybe talk about our favourite managers over the past however many years, inspired by a thread of Hibs.net, and then Colin had a great idea to say why we no showcase one of our extra time episodes, which is what subscribers get. So we're going to do that. So shortly what you'll do is you'll hear the intro music again, and then you'll hear last week's extra time, which is our subscriber exclusive content. And we're going to, if you are a subscriber, don't worry, we're going to record extra time after this, so you will have a new episode out for your money, which is what we promise. If you want to subscribe, so if you listen to the episode coming up and you think actually I'd like to hear more of that kind of thing, there's a link on our Twitter bio. We're just at Longbangers on Twitter, or you can go directly to longbangers.hubwave.net, and you can sign up there, £3 a month. Also, I tell you about a live show that's coming up, which is on the 21st of October at Easter Road. Tickets are on sale now. You can DM us on Twitter for details of how to buy them. £7 for a subscriber and £10 for non-subscribers. This is our second show, the Tricky second album, we're calling it. Colin, John, what were would you remember your experience of the first one?
I don't remember much yet, actually. I remember shiting myself before it.
Not literally.
Not literally. But I think no, that was a different thing. No, it's fine. No, it wasn't then. That's quite nerve-wracking. Hopefully we can sell as many tickets or more, actually, as we did the last time, but which I don't think it would matter. I don't think my nerves would be any... I don't think my nerves will be worse this time. I felt a wee bit of an imposter the last time, because I'd only been doing this for a couple of, three months maybe?
Aye, something like that. You were still quite good at it,
whereas this year I'm embedded, I think, in the thing, so
seasoned veteran.
I'll feel a wee bit better about it, but I think it matters, because even like if you've done I think we've all done best men speeches and that before, you still feel, you're still nervous.
Sure, yeah.
No matter if you've done, I've done two, and I was still as nervous the second time as it was the first time. So, I don't think it'll matter. So I'll still be nervous. That's what I remember. I remember fucking Recast being there filming us and facing the audience, which I wasn't. I was trying to get out of as much as I could. And then I do remember bursting on a piss when you were wanting to get started after Pat Stanton interview. And I was like, I need to go for a piss. Bursting.
I mind playing a fives competition at the Corn Exchange years ago, and I think maybe halfway through the first game I started needing a jobby, and I decided that I wasn't going to go to the toilet because I thought that it would keep me on my toes.
Keep you the top of your game.
Aye, definitely do that again, Colin.
What would you remember for it, John?
I remember discussing the merits of dicks for fingers or fingers for dicks. That was Murray Minter had asked that question, so and there was a few others like that, and it was funny. It was really, really surreal because I think at some point, I don't think I'm probably speaking at a turn by saying that at some point in our lives, in our Hibs supporting lives, we've all thought that we were going to be Hibs footballers and perform at Easter Road. Hopefully we're funnier than we are decent footballers because the football never worked out, but we still got to perform at Easter Road. So that's, as I say, that's pretty surreal, and I'm looking forward to as surreal as it was the first time. It's absolutely bizarre that we're getting the opportunity to do it again.
It's mental.
What I was going to say was the first time was a bit disappointing was that it kind of finished and then it was time to go. Like it was last orders and that.
Aye, because we are just
because
we are curious idiots and just sort of riding the crest of that wave where Greg and the other folk behind the scenes at Easter Road said, you can definitely use Easter Road to do your live event. It just kind of, we started and we finished before we really knew what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And a few folk, we were able to go, like, I think the three of us just kind of went our separate ways. I don't know if there was folk like driving off in cars or staying at parents in town or whatever. I ended up at the Mash Tun in the corner having a drink with Liam and Leon and a few other boys. I think Aldo for Alan's Bakery, he was out. So this year, hoping to have a bit more structure and have a bit more time with folk at the end to speak to our supporters, speak to our subscribers, speak to our listeners.
I think that was what we've planned this thing, is to finish at a decent time so we can sort of go and mingle and have a drink with folk. I loved the last one. It was like you say, it was nerve wracking. You can just, when it's about to start and you're like, oh fuck, this is happening. Do you know, like when it's when you're planning it and thinking about it happening, you didn't really sort of, it doesn't hit you until you're kind of standing there with the microphone and you're like, oh, shit, there's people here expecting us to do something. And then obviously we kind of got last minute, we knew that Pat Stanton was going to come for an interview, so I had to wing an interview with Pat. But he was brilliant. He had like sort of stories already prepared, so it didn't really matter what I asked. He was just going to tell
they were the stories we were getting,
which were crowd pleasers anyway. So that worked a treat. And then I just remember kind of at the end, I thinking, "Fucking hell, we've been on like 2 hours pretty much with no prep. We improvised for 2 hours, did a whole show, and it was good." The feedback we got was that it was good. I enjoyed it. Folk were laughing. So,
I think that's the thing as well that was quite cool, is that like for all that we sit and chat short bangers and it's the three of us and we're kind of on different parts of the screen for each of us, I often judge the success or relative failure of short bangers based on how much each of us laugh. But I've said to you guys and I've said to a few other people that sometimes like we maybe don't laugh as much as I would have liked, but sometimes people get in touch and say, "Oh, that was a really funny episode." So to have people in the room with us laughing at us having a conversation, again, it was just one of those surreal moments.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to doing it again. And I think obviously we've got a couple of wee tweaks. It's no exact. It would never have been exactly the same show anyway because it was all improvised, but it's going to be different enough to make it worthwhile coming, but still familiar enough to make it you know what you're getting into. So anyway, we'd love to see you there. The Easter Road holds a lot of people, so we can take a lot of folk there. We've got tickets left, so come along. Anyway, right, that's pretty much us for new stuff tonight. I'm going to pass you over now and you can listen to Extra Time for last week. Get in touch with us if you liked it, and again, if you do enjoy it and you want more of that content, just go and click on our wee Twitter bio and you can subscribe. It's £3 a month, less than a pint. Somebody said earlier in the week on Twitter it was the best £3 you'll spend, so that's as good as an endorsement as you're going to get. And it wasn't my mum that said it either, which is better. Ken, it was somebody that's not related to us.
But she does think that you're very good looking, and it's not true what everyone else says.
She does say that, aye. She does say that when she sends me the card every February, which is nice. Anyway, right. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Well, build my gallows and build them high. Makes a long time climbing before I die. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Longbangers Extra Time. I'm Matty, joined tonight by Colin and John. How's them, boys?
Good.
Very well.
Good.
Sound over the moon, Colin.
It's like, we've done one. Can we just get this one over the
This is the shorter one, eh?
This is the shorter one. We're skipping through it like to the end. Happy as fuck. Right, on tonight's show, we are going to be talking about how would you say it's a Hibs strategy of sort of investing heavily in the development team. Some of the discussion at the end of the transfer window was around whether that money could have been or should have been better spent on the first team. So we've gone out and spent fees on players such as Runa Hauga, Jamie McAllister's laddie. What's his first name again? Ruben, thank you. I always want to call him fucking Rudy, yeah. Like, we brought in a boy called Rudy.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know when obviously it sticks in your head because there was a bit of noise about him getting the number 51 jersey and everything, and I think they changed it eventually.
They gave the laddie fucking... Did they? You've got to give the laddie some fucking credit for that.
Aye, because he's really Jambo.
Yes.
Oh, is he? Oh, I thought I'd read that he wasn't. Anyway, Ruben McAllister came in for, what was that? I reported anywhere between 100 and 250,000.
700 million pounds.
And then you've got the likes of Del Ferry and Tate, Daniel Mackay, who've come in, and some of the talking points we got in for Longbangers were around the youth team compared to the senior team, especially when we were sort of looking at not replacing or bringing in new centre halves or a centre midfielder, which much of the fan base that we heard from thought we should have been bringing in. So, John, I kind of, just generally speaking, the overall principle of the development team and investing in it, what are your views on it?
I think you've got to. Like, you need to have something in place. Like, because I think all football clubs have some sort of youth development, and the idea being that the clubs, the players that come through the youth development will make their way into the first team at some point. But I think it's also recognised that it's really difficult for players to do that and sustain a career as a professional footballer. I'm interested to know, as a comparison, what the development side or what the youth side looked like before and what sort of investment there was in it. And I wonder if that's maybe something that's been overlooked, because we've obviously got a new owner in, and he's taken his view on what the club and how the club should be operating. But I don't know if those figures are available, or if either of you two are maybe a bit more clued up on it than I am.
I can definitely tell you I am not more clued up on that than you are. I don't know about you, Colin, but I think there's a really good point you make there about what it looked like before, though, and it's probably worth sort of talking about that a wee bit, because when was it? It was either the first or the second AGM at Ron Gordon's time, and he talked about the youth team, and Hibs had identified a gap from having like a sort of successful under 18s team, but then from 18 to sort of 22-year-olds, we didn't have anybody ready for the first team. It was like they were good up to this age, then when they should be breaking into the first team, we didn't have anybody. But so that was what they had a stated objective to bring in the best talent that they could for our money to fill that gap, which I think is what we've done. So I'm not sure if this is a spend that you would see season after season. What do you think about that, Colin?
I think that's what the point I was going to make. I think because the first team's not performing well, or hasn't been performing well over the last 18, no, it's not 18 months, it's 10 months since we started losing games, isn't it? That spend that presumably they budgeted for in that period when we were doing well, I think if this time last year, what, top of the league?
Yes.
Going to Ibrox to the top of the league and all that. They probably went, right, over the next fucking 12 months, let's ram the development team with bodies, fill it up, get the numbers up, get the quality up, get the age profile up a wee bit over the 18-year-old thing and all that. And that was the 12-month plan. Then the first team started being shite. So then everybody's went, why are we spending all the fucking money on that? But we've parked that money aside for this to make that better for the long-term gain, because the short-term was okay.
Yeah.
The problem is the short-term's fucked. because it's been fucking 14 out, 15 in, and all that over the last, like we've been speaking about over the transfer windows and that. The last couple, well, certainly the one in the summer, big turnover and all that. So then then we're even making our own jokes about, oh, we'll have a great team in 3 years' time and all that. But that would have been planned for, and that would have been a strategic thing. The money put parked aside, like how budgets work. Can it be like it's like a different bank account or something? You know what I mean? It's a different accounting line. So it's planned for, budgeted for, and done. Do we take the short-term approach on that and say, well, the first team's not very good now, so in this window we need to take all the money away, we planned for that and put it in here? You could do that, but then I would think if you're like, it's almost like, so if you've got money and you've got a financial planner and you've got the financial planner to tell you what's your risk level and all that, and you're don't worry about the markets taking a dip in the first year because you're investing for 10 years plus. So the markets will always recover over that period of time and all that. And that's we've went, I think they've went with the approach, well, we can't change your long-term plan because of a short-term problem.
Aye. Maybe. I think that's pretty much nail on the head, Colin, probably quite well articulated as...
So we are going to get you here early then. Is that
thanks for listening. But the argument though is folk didn't care about 3 years' time. If we're shite now and we're going to be bottom six, you're going to lose out on a whole load of revenue that might have funded better players for the first team, John. So do you think we've got the balance right?
Oh, I don't know. I honestly don't know. And I think the balance, I think to go back to what Colin was saying initially, like I think the balance is only right when there isn't anything to moan about. Like, and that you've got nothing to moan about as long as the first team's doing well.
Yeah.
And I think so. Again, like I hopefully I'm not misremembering anything, but when we think back to like and it's a mental that we're still talking about it now, or that I'm about to mention it now, but the golden generation. I think the suggestion was that those players, Riordan, O'Connor, etc., weren't going to play had Hibs' hand not been forced because like some of the things that Colin are talking about, like markets crashing. I think it was maybe like a TV deal or something. And at that point, like players were turning up Easter Road not knowing where they were going to train that day. So we got the training centre in. But I think for a number of years now, I feel like the criticism, and again I might be misremembering this, is that there hasn't been that conveyor belt of talent coming off the training centre that we were supposed to be getting. And is it because we haven't had that long-term vision in place to provide a development team to provide that pathway into the first team? And I think like you'll get it in every meeting at your work. Like so, it's that cliche about it's just about finding that balance. And like I've said it to a couple of people recently. I almost admire like Ron Gordon's stubbornness and forcing ahead when he talks about things like the commercial department and the things that are off the pitch. Like the only thing that's missing is the stuff on the pitch. But if we can go forward with that vision, and if you can get that vision right, then suddenly everything is just that little bit rosier further down the line. And it's hard to take on a Saturday when, like last season, for example, where it was just fucking shit from...
It's been a long 10 months.
Aye, like Ryan Porteous getting...
It started.
Aye, so after Ryan Porteous got sent off at Ibrox, and then it just went into that like ever decreasing downward spiral. It's been a bit shite, but if everything else is working, you can start making, stick with your long-term vision and make the little tweaks that are required to the short-term plan. You've got to hope. And I think this is what I've said before. I realise that like I've said before, like I just want Hibs to be good. What I mean is, in backing this plan and backing the manager or backing the owners or whatever, it's because I have to believe that it's going to come right and that we're going to see the benefit of it. And we've never, to the best of my knowledge, like ever really gone through like there's been hard periods and there's been shite results, but I don't think we've ever been this close to possibly seeing the outcome of something. So, like I mentioned before, like the fact that we've got new owners in and we've got this this plan in place, I think that's why I asked the question, like, what were the plans previously? Because I think it's quite easy to look back and hark back to people like Leanne Dempster and George Craig or Rod Petrie or whoever it happened to be, because we won the Scottish Cup under their stewardship. Stewardship. But then you look at simple things like the advertising round the pitches that weren't being paid for. Like, how was that not more roundly criticised? But the opposite is true now, that apparently Hibs are becoming more commercial because we're actually driving income through the door. And that just seems to be a bit bizarre. So, the fact that we've got a plan in place feels better than not knowing what the plans were previously. Drive it forward. We'll be fine.
And I suppose the benefit of the development team is it should, in theory, save you money in the long term. So not just save you money, but actually generate you money as well. What about the argument then about... So, right, I'll no pick on McAllister because I think there's a very obvious... like you could set it almost like an agenda because of who he is and because he's an assistant manager's son. You actually end up singling out McAllister as out for criticism, if you like, or focus because of who he is. But I try to think who else we paid money for. So Runa Hauge, right, cost us money. He came in was
first team.
I think that's the difference. So Melkson was brought in as a first team. Hauge was brought in development. I think they're quite similar ages as well, though. But he was announced as, or McClelland, coming for Rangers, announced for the development team. We could have gone out and got I think how much Hauge was say 100,000. Spent 100,000 on a championship player or a League One player in England, 25, 26-year-old to come in and play in the first team. They might not have very much resale value, but they might do a job for this season and next season before they maybe go back down south. What's the payoff in doing the approach that we've taken, Colin, compared to doing that? And is it the right one or is it the wrong one, do you think?
It's yet to be proven, isn't it? But we've been there before, bringing in these fucking boys from down south that come for League One and the Championship and think, well, they're coming up here for a jolly. I think they're better than they are. I think they're better than everybody there. And they're pish. Like Thornhills and Paulsons and various others, McGivern, all of these boys all played for fucking Aston Villa, Liverpool, Man City, all that shite. And they're not that good. And then we just kicked them out of no. So we paid $100,000 on them. They were never on any of those ones. I think they were all kind of loan deals and that, I think. But you spend $100,000 on them and you wouldn't even fucking get them for $100,000. That's the thing, the madness down there. Like, so what would you get for $100,000? You'd be into fucking National League One or something. Vauxhall Conference and that, or whatever that's called nowadays. You know what I mean? You wouldn't even get a League One player for that. If League Two, you'd be in for $100,000 because their fucking money's mental. So, and then the payoff of that is you get fuck all back for it because you either get rid of them because they're shite or they think they're better than you, or they just leave when they're 28 and go and sign on a free for somebody in League Two on fucking 10 times the wages we're paying. Whereas the idea here is you bring this guy in for $100,000 and he's worth £1 million in 2 or 3 years, I guess, and then that's your payoff. So there's risk reward, but there seems to be more. It's short term view, long term. Again, it's just all down to that, isn't it? It's like the development squad's all about the long term. The first team's all about the short term. That's the complete difference between the two. And the difference is they're getting conflated, and because we're signing players all at the same time, and there's so much movement in the first team squad required. If that movement wasn't required, you'd be saying he's a development team player. But we're going, who are we signing? Oh, ages ago, I've been the youth. You know what I mean? It's like, and that we've not got a clue because we're just bringing so many bodies in that we're trying to work it out ourselves because the first team isn't stable.
How do you feel?
A striker in last summer.
How do you both feel about the fact that Hibs announced the signing of development squad players? Because I don't know if that would have ever been done previously. like we'll announce on the official website or on Twitter or whatever that says like we've signed X. So Kyle McLaren, for example, he said a wee sniff of first team action in the League Cup. But I don't think we've seen him in the league yet. And then same with Runar Hauga, so he got a couple of wee shouts last year. But like you say, they weren't signed to be first team players yet. But we announced them like they're first team players. And do you think that upsets the balance a bit?
So yeah, it's a good shout. But we'll also sign players of a similar age profile who are for the first team. And then you think, how are you making that decision? Like who's
on age? It's on ability, isn't it? Or development
or potential ability, or do you know whether is it their physicality that's not ready for the first team? You know,
but you look at any team, any age group, right? You go down the park and watch a fucking under 14s girls or an under 18s boys, and there'll be guys in there that are, say, the under 18 team, 15-year-olds playing and 18-year-olds playing. The 15-year-olds playing because he's got the ability and the potential to be better than that guy's 18 playing in the 18. You know what I mean? Like you play up in age if you're more. And there's similar there that these guys are more ready for the first team. So they're signed for the first team. They're ready. They're not.
Yeah.
So they when they assessed them and scouted them, that would be part of the process. Is he first team ready now? No. He probably needs dropped in and out, a few games for the reserves or development team. Bring him in, give him a few minutes here and there, maybe play him in the League Cup, put him back out, get him out on loan, all that stuff. Whereas he's ready to go in the first team. He should be on the bench minimum. And it doesn't matter if they're 16, 21. It's about ability and progress, and the development team is about developing.
Right. I get that, but if you're signing, so I suppose Melkerson and it does go on about no range. I'm sort of working that point through in my head as I'm talking. I would take Melkerson and Hauge as a comparison because I think they're about the same age. Both came from similar levels. But then one's development team, one's first team. But actually, neither of them were ready for the first team as it panned out. Do you think?
But they maybe thought Melkerson had more physical attributes. Maybe he performed better in that league, even though they came from the same league. That's like saying that fucking Liverpool signed the laddie Ramsey, and they've also signed whoever the Celtics fullback is, and go, well, they both came for the same league. You're like, but he's fucking been winning that league with Celtic. And scoring loads of goals. He's just been playing a few games for Aberdeen. And so they came for the same league, they're the same age, but one's clearly fucking more advanced than the other. And I'm not saying that's a good example because maybe Melkerson probably is more advanced than Hagi, right? He only played 5 minutes, he came on and ran about and got booked. Whereas Melkerson's played 45 minutes, ran about, got booked, but also scored 2 goals.
The other thing is, I don't know if Hibs missed a trick in how they've positioned that development team. So we've got like the under 18s who won the league last season. They're playing under 18s Champions League this season. So some of them all the same boys will qualify because it's obviously they're a year older, right? So they do qualify. Right, that's good. The development team was like for beyond 18-year-olds, and I suppose the 18-year-olds who are really good will fit into that development team as well. But I wonder if would we expect to see the folk who are in the development team now breaking through as this season goes on, or are they next season, the season after? Do you think?
Well, some of them should. Yeah. Well, it depends on how they develop. Like some of them might have been closer to being ready as well. We're not all on that. It's not like a level playing field.
Yes.
They're not all on the same level. They're all in the development team for the same reason. Some are closer to the first team than others. Some are miles away from it because they've got to have that in every team. So, and it will not be on age. It will not be based on the age thing. I'll take the age thing out of it altogether. I don't think we sign players and go, he's 19, he's in the development team. Because you sign a 19-year-old that's ready, first team ready. Ryan Porteous was first team ready when he was 19. It's not about age, it's about progress, physique, ability. And there'll be players in that development team that are nearly ready, and there'll be some that need a season or two. Would be my guess. They're not all starting on the same level here.
But I suppose what we're saying is, do you think the noise would have been turned down a wee bit about the development team and spend on if folk were going, right, we spent the money on that boy there, but actually he might impact the team towards the end of the season? I think folk would be more willing to accept that rather than going, fucking, He's
Maybe.
come in as 16. We'll maybe never even see him in the first team before we.
But then you're putting pressure on. They're putting
Does that set an
pressure
expectation?
on them right away. Aye. And if folk are saying, well, it's fucking October, and they said they would be ready, and they're like, no, come out, he's been injured a wee bit, he's had a hammy, and the game's got called off. So he's not ready, and everybody's up in fucking arms and going, well, he's fucking maybe ready by October, and he's not got him ready. You're just setting yourself up for a fail by doing that. IMO.
What about you, John? What do you think?
What do I think about what?
About what Colin just said.
Yes. No, I
15.
think he's right. I was going to ask the question about the under 18s that are going off to play in the Champions League. So they'll be playing against the best of the same age group for around Europe. If they progress from the under 18, is there a progression from the under 18s to the development squad and the development squad to the first team? Is that the idea behind it?
Not necessarily. They might go right to the first
18s.
team if they're good enough.
But they're too old for the under 18s now, right? But the champion, because they won the league as under 18s, they get to play in it this year. So
right.
They're not in the under 18s anymore. They now play in the development squad, is my understanding of it. But they can reform as the guys in the development squad that are too old can't play in that Champions League tie.
Got you. Right, okay. So you can go up the way, but you can't come down.
You can't get younger, John.
Aye. So I'm still going to agree with Colin. That seems safe. Colin's wiser than me.
Porteous came straight to the 18s or whatever it was then and went straight into the first team. Fraser Murray did, but he probably could have done with this development squad at that time because he had the potential and he just needed it. He needed it more time to either get more physical or bigger or develop an area he needed to. Whereas we were like, you need to go in the first team because there's a big fucking gap here, and that's how they're thinking we've lost so much potential like that over the years. Because if you go through the under 18 teams of years, even the ones that win the league, that's happened a few times in the last 20 years, 2-3 times maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Look if one or two get through.
Yeah.
And even then, if you think of the years ago when they won the league and cup double, when you were writing the match reports and that, Matthew, I think the only ones that really got through was Paul Hanlon, and he hadn't even played for it because he was already promoted out yet.
He was already in the first team. There's players there that made it, but not at Hibs. Do you like Cam Booth and Sean Welsh? She went on to play, but
He's still kicking about
David Waterspoon.
I think about. I can't remember exactly what point you were talking about it, but it reminded me of the Man United youth setup. So you'll remember players like Ryan Giggs, for example, that came through, or the class of '92, all of them.
No, he's up to now.
What, class of '92?
No, Ryan Giggs. Probably in a poetry or something like that.
Keeping yourself busy.
But for every Ryan Giggs, every Paul Scholes, there was I'm trying to think of some of who was the boy?
Grant Brebner.
Well, there was a Grant
David
Brebner.
Gray.
So David Gray. There's guys that went through the youth development and didn't make it in the Man United first team, but didn't mean that they weren't professional footballers. Like, they didn't just disappear off the scene. I think it was Darren. Darren. I can't remember. I think he went on to play for West Brom. He'd been emptied out of Man United. They went away, and I think Arsenal were rumoured to be signing him for about 25 million a couple of years ago. And I'm like, fucking 25 million. He was pish. But for all the players that we have coming through under 18s development squad, they may not make it as Hibs first team footballers, but they may be sold to go and play for someone else, which I think ties back into your argument about it could be a commercial success. But obviously, We're looking for the guys that come through and do make it as Hibs professional footballers and do become outgrow Hibs, like John McGinn, for example, or Josh Doig's the most recent one.
Do you think it's a sensible approach for Hibs to do? So if you go by the logic that we can't afford to buy the ready-made players who are exceptional, going out and buying players who we think will be exceptional at a younger age and buying that potential, it's risky, but is it the right strategy?
I think it's an interesting. I don't know. We don't know yet until it's proven. It seems to be a good idea. I think even not playing in that lowland league, I think that's a stupid idea playing in there. Like I think Hearts, Rangers, and Celtic are all in it now, and you can't get promoted to it, so you're effectively a non-competitive game because the guy, it's just what you're playing for. You're playing on Saturday at 3 in some shitty places when the first team are playing. So you can't even get called in. I think the development team always play on a Tuesday now, or that's the plan, so that they follow the same routine as the first team, and that they can be available if required to be on the bench and all that, because that'll be some of the ones that are closer to being ready. They'll sit on the bench. The other ones will go out on loan and come back and all that. If you're playing against fucking Whitehall Welfare at 3 o'clock on a Saturday, you can't. So you're effectively just doubling up your squad, and they're just playing against boys like I would say me and you, but we're too old and not good enough. Boys that are good at football that play at that level, but they just work in a normal. They're IT boys, they're project managers, they're fucking posties, they're Sparkies, joiners, all of that. That's what they're playing against. I don't see what benefit there is in playing that. Just don't. So I think that side is correct. They maybe could be more open with what the target is in terms of like what we've got a squad there of 20 development players. 5 are nearly first team ready. 5 will be there in a year. Another 10 might not even make it. You know what I mean? And they'll have them all categorised. They wouldn't tell us that, but in a year we would want 2 progressing to the first team. We'd look to be selling a couple on to get this amount of money back in. Whatever the targets are, because we don't know and it's not clear.
But it would be. Sorry, Mike.
Let's see if we could get Steve Keane on, because Hibs have evidently invested a lot in this development team, and the idea that this is where our almost like your USP, unique seller, but where Hibs will differentiate themselves from other clubs will be in this investment in the youth. Not that I'm saying other clubs didn't do it, but Hibs seem to have this particular focus on it. Steve Keane, who will not be cheap, I suppose, very experienced in football, to come in and oversee it and then invest in the money. It'd be good to probably get him on if we could arrange that, and kind of just tap his brains and figure out, ask what is it, all behind it, what's the plan for the players, how did they progress from 18s through the development team and into the first team.
It's going to be tricky to do what Colin suggested about giving us more information about it, because any hint that it's not working is just going to be seized upon.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Like Ruben McAllister or whoever it is that we've got into the development team so far. Why the fuck are we signing them or spending that money?
So it's a mentality thing in the fan base, but I mean it's the same though. It's like if you don't do that, then folks just make stuff up. So is it better than making stuff up and holding out of that, or is it better actually holding them to what they're actually targeting? Because they must have a target.
Aye, and they will have.
Or targets.
The thing is that there's a huge payoff because of the where Hibs are now and what we will sell players for. So you look at the last 2 big sales have been Boyle and Doig, which have been 3 million each. If you're bringing through a McAllister, and again, loath to use him just because it was the name that we're talking about, for 100 grand or whatever, but then are able to sell him for 6 million further down the line, nobody's going to be complaining about that bit of business. You'll have had the use of him for however many years, developed him, and then got a good reward to then plough back into the club. It is a high reward strategy if it works.
Is it worthwhile? Again, like I hope I'm no like a stuck record with this, but like compare what we have now, and as much as it's not completely flawless, and as much as it's yet to be proven, what was the plan previously for generating income or developing players to generate income? Was there anything? Or was it just maybe someone comes through and they're all right and we sell them?
I thought it was a wee bit hitting up more than this seems to be like an actual progression plan in that, whereas a wee bit more it was like, well, we've got good development, we've got good youth, we'll get lucky now and again. Yeah.
I think it was. I think it's more aggressive and more deliberate now. I think there was definitely a plan in place before. Like I would be, amazed if Leanne Dempster and George Craig and Graham Matthew did not look at that and see. Well, we know he did because they brought in Eddie May to sort of oversee. Like he came in with that sort of remit, and they invested in trying to get it. But whether they went out and said, right, we're going to scour these markets for the best young talent that we can afford and bring them in at the expense of spending on the first team. I think it was always how can we do it but without really allocating any serious budget to it. Whereas now we've gone, let's as a deliberate part of our strategy and try make sure it works. That's probably the difference between it. It's just got a bit more focus and a bit more purpose behind it. It's interesting, Like, and the thing is, like you say, Colin, it's too early to tell, and we probably won't know until next year at the earliest to see if anybody's coming through. But probably the next 2 or 3 years.
What would you both say is an indicator of success for this strategy? Is it a player from the development squad going on to be a first teamer? Is it what do you think?
To outgrow Hibs, I think that's what you're looking at. You're looking at players that come through who can earn the first team place, be better than the player that they're replacing, and then have a sell-on value that they go to a bigger team.
Is that the only indicator, or do you think there's any others?
I think that's going to be it for Hibs. I think that's what they're banking on happening with them. Is that you get they won't all do that. You might have one or two that are like your Stevensons or Hanlon that you have at the club for their career, and they win cups or.
It's getting in the first team. It's getting in the first team's got to be the first indicator, and then
I think that's the
there,
first. But
not guys that are solid first team players. But then they'll be wanting guys that make money off it.
Yeah,
but you're going to have a bit of both. I would have thought, but getting in the first team's the most basic indicator if it's working, because then if they're improving the first team, then the development team's doing its job. If we can then even make them even better and they become a John McGinn or a Josh Doig, Gary O'Connor, Derek Riordan, they'll say Riordan when I fucking sold him, he fucked off for free. But you know what I mean, all the ones that we got money for, then even better. You know, like, because then we're making money out of it. But it's probably more about making the first team better would be the most basic of indicators for the.
I think that's your minimum requirement for it. I think they will want to produce Josh Doigs that go for the in for nothing or almost nothing.
The first team, make the first team better, get that money in, make that, then that development chain should be coming through to fill the gaps again, and then keep the conveyor belt going, which we never had. We sold O'Connor, we went, oh fuck, we've not got a striker. You know what I mean? Whereas now,
and we've got a game against Hearts at the weekend.
There should be somebody ready to fill their boots.
Or not far away, you know, or we get the money in and you can replace.
You can go out and buy a ready-made one. And then I suppose it's easier for the club to go and have that mix of development players and players at their peak to go and perform and be successful.
It's hard at the moment because it's all just kicking off at once and it's all that much all at once. But I think it's the right thing to do. It's just it probably was decided, like to come back to the start, decided at the right time, but then the time changed over that period of October to February last year, fucking April last year, where it was just shit. And that's why we've it's had a lot of questioning minds over it. Like, what are we doing here? We're spending all that money on that, whereas actually there's a difference. It's probably not. I don't know if it's been explained long term v short term and all that, or if everybody thought they had to, because it should be pretty obvious. But
what was it? We had the famous quote on Quick Bang one time. It's like, now is not the time to be planning for the future.
That's right.
Fucking hell, right.
That's brilliant.
Come on now. Right. Anyway, that's us out of time for tonight. I hope if we confused matters or whether we've discussed it enough to kind of form a view on it. It's probably a topic we'll revisit at some point as well. But again, if you want to talk about it, join us on Twitter Spaces. We'd love to hear what you think about the development team. We'll be on Tuesday night talking about it, so we'd love to see you there. Thanks for subscribing as always, and a reminder that live show tickets are available 21st October at Easter Road. You'll get them for £7 as a subscriber, so just DM me on Twitter for details.
Thanks to clarify, they're available now, not available on the 21st October.
No, we're doing it on the 21st. The Tricky Second album is what the show's called. Tickets are available now, so we'd love to see you there. Right, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Well, they trailed me down when I broke free. I drank all the whiskey in Tennessee. I don't drink water, no, you know what I mean. County line, I pledged upon. Well, they trailed me down when I broke free. I drank all the whiskey in Tennessee. I don't drink water, no.